Mahindra has decided to Roxx the SUV party recently with this beast, the Thar Roxx. Now, when that happened, everybody had the same question: how is it really different from the regular Thar, which doesn't have a suffix? Well, that's what we're going to tell you today, and I can tell you also straight up that it's not just the fact that this one is longer than this one. So the obvious difference between the two is the length, and that aside, there are changes. You get a different grille on the Roxx, which Mahindra likes to call the six-pack. The grille is now hooded at the top with the Mahindra name at an angle on it. It is wider than before and also gets a body-colored finish. The headlights are new. It finally gets LED lights, and those C-shaped DRLs do look distinct. And finally, not like the Wrangler's DRLs. And while the Thar only gets 18-inch alloys, the Roxx wears a size larger, at the top end of course. The name Thar is just brilliant because it's so uniquely Indian. It pays tribute to our mighty desert in Rajasthan. But then you have Thar Roxx. When I first heard that name, I had to kind of sit down and wonder what was the direction that Mahindra was going with when it came to this name. You could have gone with Jaisalmer or Jodhpur, evoked images of Rajasthan and its grandeur and its tough terrain. But nope, we are going with Thar Roxx. You can't even say it without having to pause in the middle. Thar Roxx, Thar Roxx. We'll get used to it. Don't love it. Now, the car is definitely longer than that one, as I was saying, and it's, to be precise, 443 millimeters longer. Most of that goes back here because, of course, the idea of stretching it out was to give us a nice 5-door. And so let's talk about that door a little bit. Compared to regular cars which have the 4-passenger doors, this door is, let's face it, a little bit narrow. And while that does make a difference in terms of the comfort you have getting in and getting out, it's not terrible. This, though, is again something I have to question. Now, a car like this, which is about being chunky and sort of brutish, it really should have chunky, big grab handle kind of door handles. This doesn't have it. And of course, to be fair, not at the regular Thar, but if you have this black, slightly more functional looking handle that's here, well, why is this one body colored? You have to really wonder. And why isn't it down here? Again, that's because it would have really emphasized possibly the fact that it's a narrow door. But this is what we have. This is what we have to live with. The roof line is obviously different as well. You get a sheet metal roof. It's not the fiber roof. And then you have this little design element, let's call it that, that sits above the rear door. Have to question why it's there. This particular angle is very, very pronounced. And, you know, I really think the idea is not to look like the Wrangler. But you have to again question why it's there. It didn't need to be there. It actually takes away from what would otherwise be a nice squarish design. To sort of justify that, you have these little Easter eggs where you have a camel down here and then the Roxx climbing up this steep incline that's been baked in. Let's call that interesting. There are some Easter eggs up front as well. And then overall, the car still manages to look proportionate. It still manages to look good. And it doesn't look like it's a stretched, weird version of that one. So like I said, that stretched length doesn't make it look weird at all. And it is a good-looking car overall. But is that the story inside? Inside, the difference is really obvious. There's an effort, again a very obvious one, to go a little bit more swish, more posh. And you have to question in India why you would have a nearly white interior, even up here, which kind of becomes difficult to clean. But you know what? It does look different and it looks more urban, more lifestyle-like. And I think that's what Mahindra was going for. You do have the two-tone on the dash, and up here, again, a big difference. Soft touch with this 4 stitching, trying to look more upmarket, though the layout of the dash is the same, the materials completely different. The screen's completely different as well because you get the Adrenox system at the top end, which means 10.25-inch touchscreen and the same sized instrument cluster, a virtual one. So these are huge changes. Some of this might show up in the facelift of the high-end or the top-end version of the Thar sometime next year. But the effort, like I was saying, has been made to try and just make this car feel more urban friendly, and I think you've achieved that to a large extent because the seats are comfortable, the layout and the materials, definite improvement, and then you also get the things like the touchscreen, the wireless charger. It works. And even the base MX-1 trim is pretty loaded. You even get a non-HD 10.25-inch touchscreen at the base level. So there's a lot going on in favor of the Thar Roxx. But does that mean that the regular Thar is terrible? Ergonomically, the two cars are similar and the layout of the dash is similar, but of course, glaring differences. And this, I feel, is something that's going to get addressed when we see the facelift coming next year on this car. So I'm not sure about the soft touch materials, but because really, if you look at it, the whole idea is that it's a little more rugged and that's pronounced. I think that goes with the image of the car and it should stay. And so I don't expect the palette or the materials to change. But sure, you could get the bigger screen and you could get the instrument cluster going virtual. It still has the Easter eggs on this one as well. And the biggest advantage you get on the regular Thar versus the Thar Roxx, the fact that you can go topless. So only a hard top on the 5-door. The purists may protest, but I think that's just fine given who the Roxx is targeted at. The Roxx is obviously better loaded, though the Thar will also get this dual screen layout with its facelift next year. And while the 3-door does have dual airbags, ABS and ISOFIX child seat mounts as standard, it's likely to also get more of that safety equipment as standard next year. On the Roxx, there's a ton of safety equipment, everything from 6 airbags, 3-point seat belts with reminders for all, ISOFIX, electronic stability control, anti-lock brakes, and then some, all as standard. The Thar also gets optional blind spot cameras and 360 views, and level 2 ADAS with 10 features. The 3-door Thar's Achilles heel was always lack of cabin space behind the front row. That back seat itself, more than the lack of rear doors, was the bigger reason that some folks shunned the car. It even gets a little claustrophobic back there because the rear windows don't roll down or open. And you don't even have rear AC vents. It's different in the 5-door Roxx. Very different. You get your own AC vents, you got a nice high seating position, very SUV-like, great view of the road and the surroundings. These are all the positives, besides the one big winner in the pack, which is the seat is one that can recline. Smart move, Mahindra, because it gives you a lot more sense of space and comfort. At the end of the day, the legroom is a little compromised, but under thigh support could have been better. But you do feel like this was worth the effort of going from the 3-door with its really compromised back seat to this one. The panoramic roof only adds to that sense of space, and the cabin feels roomier overall than even, dare I say, the Scorpio N. One great addition to the Roxx, front and back, are these grab handles. They may not seem like much, but when you're in, let's say, not the smoothest conditions, this kind of helps. Of course, you have these as well for when you're actually sitting in the car on the move, but getting in and getting out, man, these come in handy. The side step makes getting in and out easier, given the height of the car. Yes, even for elder people. But it won't be a breeze still. Now, handling on the car is better than you would expect for a car that's built this way, but when you compare it to the Scorpio N or to the regular Thar, of course, there is a lot of roll. You feel it more here in the back, obviously, but it's the right quality that even though the overall sense in the car is, like I'm feeling right now, bouncy, you still feel comfortable on this seat. You don't feel like you're getting thrown around. That is something that people will like because exaggerated SUV-ness is really the reason why they'd buy this car over, say, a Hyundai Creta. The Thar has a better sense of handling with its shorter wheelbase and of course is very agile and very effective off-road as we have tested before. But really, the Thar Roxx is not for the off-roading type anyway, is it? While both cars use the same drivetrains, there is more power and more torque on offer with the Roxx, and more options too in terms of state of tune. On the Thar, it is more limited. Both cars do come in rear and four-wheel drive options, as well as automatic and manual. The Thar Roxx is reasonably priced too. I won't call this aggressive, but I guess Mahindra needed to find a sweet spot without killing the prospects of its other models, especially the 3-door. It starts at an affordable 12,99,000 rupees for the base MX-1 variant, which isn't bare bones, and it tops off at a reasonable 20,49,000 rupees for the rear-wheel drive variants. Mahindra hasn't as yet announced prices for the 4x4, but then again, does anyone really want one? So which Thar would you want? Or do you like neither? Tell me in the comments below.